In order to bring to light what mental health really is, can you give us a brief understanding of what mental health is? Anger spoils belief just as vinegar spoils honey.
Our relationships, we see it very commonly that, okay, you're angry at, let's say, your mother-in-law, but you can't say anything to her, and then you shout at your kids, right?
Anger is the key to all evil.
Islam tells us to, right?
Yeah.
To be, it's not nowhere. I don't think it tells us that you're not supposed to feel angry, right? It's the culture and the way we were brought up that we think, oh, I'm not supposed to feel anger,
Which is not possible because we are human beings,
It's not
and this is an emotion that arises in all of us.
So the sons might start acting out. The son might, or the daughter might start showing the anger. And then what do? We say, oh, you're not supposed to get angry. But you are getting angry.
Yeah, I'm your parent. Be kind to me. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Salamun alaikum. For the first podcast, we have an issue that affects all of us, and this is mental health. Mental health is not only restricted to issues such as depression and anxiety, which is what we all recognize it as. Rather, it affects a range of issues, including issues such as anger. For our first episode, we have a special guest who is joining us all the way from Tehran, and he's an expert in psychology, Sister Sabira Kanji. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
So, in order to bring to light what mental health really is, can you give us a brief understanding of what mental health is?
Yeah, thank you. That question is so important because often, when we talk about health, the thing that first comes in our mind is our physical health. How we are feeling, if we have any kind of disease, for God's sake, God forbid. But mental health is often neglected. We have to remember that our body, mind, and soul cannot be separated. They're all integrated. And just like our body makes us feel a certain way. If we are not mentally well, our body will also react. If we are not physically well, our mental health will also get impacted, right? So these all are integrated, and excluding mental health is not going to help. Like, let's say, when we get headaches or when we get physical issues that have psychological reasons, right? So if we take a painkiller, yes, the headache will go, but we are not treating the actual cause, which could be stress, which could be anything else, right? Anxiety. So sometimes mental health appears in our body in a physical symptom, but the cause or the root issue is to do with mental health.
So because we cannot see it physically, we often ignore it, basically.
Yeah. We either ignore it or what we do is just treat the symptoms through medication. And, yes, prayers are there, but sometimes, just praying is not going to help. Like, let's say there are so many people who go through depression and people around them said that, well, you have Allah, why don't you just pray and you will be okay? But Allah himself is telling you that, I have made you, your mental health is important. He recognizes mental health. In the Quran, we have, places where it says about fear, about sorrow. They're all emotions. And it doesn't mean that someone doesn't have faith if they are facing from depression.
That is a very interesting point. I think a lot of people are very afraid to disclose that they're struggling with mental health because often it comes to them to their Muslim identity. You're not Muslim enough if you suffer with a mental health issue. When that is not the case, because this, like you said, can be treated just as every other disease can be treated.
Exactly. It's the stigma, yeah? It's the stigma around mental health. Even if someone is trying to, reach someone like a professional, they'll first tell us that, okay, don't tell anyone, right? Because they think they'll be labeled as maybe crazy or something. Although, alhamdulillah, things are improving.
It is improving.
Yeah, it is. Mental health is accessible. People are getting more awareness. But still, the stigma is there. And, their own beliefs about mental health, yeah? Like the way we see mental health in media, the way we have our own assumptions about mental health need to be corrected because it's not a big deal, right? It's not like you are this person who is out of control and you're going to do something dangerous or you're harmful. It's just that you're feeling something like which could be sadness, which could be anger, which could be anxiety, whatever it is, and there is a way that it can be managed and channelized.
Very interesting. Now that you speak of anger, let's start with our first topic for the podcast, which is anger. Now, from an Islamic perspective, I've been looking through all the hadith on, well, not all the hadith. I looked through various hadith on anger. And there's a very interesting thing I see. In the hadith, in some of the hadith, it comes across like anger spoils belief just as vinegar spoils honey. Or anger is the key to all evil. And when we go to another part of the hadith, like when Abu Dhar was being exiled for his support for Imam Ali alayhi salam, an interesting Imam Ali alayhi salam tells him, let your daily prayers and fasts be combined with your displeasure. Sorry, this is what Abu Dhar says, not Imam Ali. Sorry, this was my mistake. Abu Dhar tells the people, let your daily prayers and fasts be combined with your displeasure for the sake of Allah. Displeasure over here indicating an emotion of anger for those people who sin. Like when he continues by saying, whenever he's disobeyed on the earth. So basically he's saying, whenever you see sin being committed on the earth, you should express an emotion which we take as anger. So anger in the Islamic literature has two folds. It's some places it's negative and some places it's positive. Or even like when Hazrat Musa, he comes back from his 40-day retreat, and وَلَمَّا رَجَعَ مُوسَى إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ غَصْبًا وَلَمَّا رَجَعَ مُوسَى إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ غَصْبًا أَسِفًا. He comes back quite angry. He's seeing the people in 40 days have absolutely left religion. And he's like, what happened? 40 days I left you. It's not like I left you for 5 years. And and he comes back angry. And this is the Prophet of God. He is an infallible, and he is expressing an emotion such as anger. So is anger always a negative emotion? What is this anger how do we identify anger as? What type of an emotion should we identify it as?
As believers, we all know that there's nothing given by Allah that has not got a purpose, right?
Yes.
So all our emotions, whether it's anger, sadness, happiness, they all have a purpose, right? Where it is like, when we can't say that anger is a negative emotion, but this is the idea that people get, right? Like growing up, most of us were told, oh, there's nothing to be angry about. Why are you angry? Like, these are the common things that our parents told us, people around us told us, and we started believing that, oh, it's a negative emotion and I should just repress it, or, just do something about it that it doesn't show on my face, and so on, right? But the thing is, the emotion itself is not negative. It's the expression, right? It's the expression. If you express it in a way that is harmful, or it's going to hurt someone, or it's not being, when you're not respectful to others, when you're angry, you're throwing things or insulting them, that is not accepted. But the emotion itself, like any other emotion, is neither negative or positive. Emotions are just pieces of information. If you're getting angry for whatever reason, that is an indicator that something's wrong, you need to do something. Imagine if Allah did not give us this emotion, we would not really be feeling angry right now when, things are going the way, in the world, right? We would not feel angry when there was oppression. If we didn't feel anything, we would be like very isolated and secluded from the rest of the world.
We would not even project any sort of desire to change the way things are.
Yeah, so anger actually creates this, like you said, a desire to change things. It's just a piece of information that you need to, reflect on. Okay, I'm feeling angry. Okay, where is it coming from, and what shall I do about it? Right? It's the expression that, yes, you can say, some people express it in a way which is very negative.
Very interesting. So when the hadith talk about anger spoils belief, what are they really referring to? As in, what type of anger is it that spoils belief?
I think, when we look at anger, right, there are 4 types. Like if you look into it from a psychological perspective, yes. Right? So the first one is aggression, which is sometimes used as anger. Like in our daily conversations, we don't really say aggression, we say anger, and what we mean is aggression, which is when, we are out of control and we are hurting people, or we are screaming or shouting, right? That is aggression. There's also passive aggression, when you are feeling angry, but you're outwardly you're fine. Like, you're just
fire in the heart.
Exactly. But your actions will show somewhere that you have anger, right? And the third one is when you're completely passive and you just repress your anger. Like, you feel that, no, I can't express it or even feel it. You don't allow yourself even to feel it, and you just repress it. And then obviously when you repress any emotion, it will come out somewhere, right? It might not come out where it's supposed to come out. Like, in our relationships, we see it very commonly that, okay, you're angry at, let's say, your mother-in-law, but you can't say anything to her, and then you shout at your kids, right? So that is, how somewhere it will be displayed.
And these sort of, obviously, like you said, aggression.
Yeah.
These sort of things are the ones that would ultimately lead to destroying the belief, because we do not control it.
Yeah,
Sorry, go on
feel,
with your fourth one.
I feel, that is the aggression is the one that will obviously impact your belief. The rest of them, yes, but like I said, there are four types, right? The final one is being assertive, which means that yes, you feel the anger, but you're able to communicate it, and you're able to resolve the problem that is in hand, or where it's coming from, and you are able to go on from there, right? So that is assertiveness, which is very positive thing. Like it's something that it's like a problem solving. It could be problem solving, it could be communicating, it could be just maybe relaxing yourself, whatever the coping strategy is, but you are dealing with it. Your assertive means that you communicate what's bothering you and what's hurtful, or whatever is causing the anger, but you don't hurt the other person. You empathize with that person, and you say it in a polite and very respected way, right? So that is what Islam tells us to, right?
Yeah.
To be, it's not nowhere. I don't think it tells us that you're not supposed to feel angry, right? It's the culture and the way we were brought up that we think, oh, I'm not supposed to feel anger,
Which is not possible, because we are human beings,
It's not
and this is an emotion that arises in all of us.
exactly.
You mentioned a very interesting point. You said when we were growing up, we were always told, why do you feel angry? Like, you don't need to feel angry. It's just a toy. It broke. Get on with life.
Yeah.
How should we actually respond when things happen, especially with kids? Because kids, I believe, up to a certain age, they're really struggling to manage the emotions. So how do you suggest we talk to kids when they are going through an emotion that they are still learning to cope with?
Yeah. So whether it's kids or adults, like, in all our relationships, if we see someone is angry, right? Like, instinctually what we do is we tell them that you're not supposed to feel angry, or we try to distract them. Like, let's say if, like you said, the kid has broken a toy, or the toy is broken, and the kid is angry, and maybe he's screaming. What we say, okay, come, let me give you another toy, or we somehow try to distract them. What they need is validation. Just tell them, yes, I know it's so upsetting that you broke your toy, and you will see the kid will feel so like they'll feel, oh, someone actually understands me, right? It is okay to feel what I'm feeling, because this is a big thing for them. Like, it's not something small. For an adult, it's just a toy, no big deal. But for that kid, maybe that toy...
It's like when we break our mobiles, right? We go through a good range of emotions when we break our mobiles.
Exactly. Like, so even with our, spouses, even with our, other relations, friends, right? So if they are going through something, if they're telling you, that means they're being vulnerable in front of you and expressing an emotion, rather than telling them oh, you shouldn't feel like this, okay, just pray, have tawakkul. Yes, that is very important, but first validate. Just tell them something like, oh, I know it must be so painful, oh, I know it is so sad, is there anything I can do about it?
So when they're understanding that emotion, then we can take the next steps towards how to solve it.
Yeah, exactly. So validation of the emotion is very important. And for as parents, the first thing we need to do is parent ourselves.
Yes.
Exactly,
That's
right?
true.
So we need to be in touch with our own emotions. Like, whatever you're feeling, sometimes it is okay to tell your kid, today mama is feeling so angry, right? But obviously it's not like you should express your emotions for them to worry about you.
Yeah.
Right? So you tell them, okay, mama is feeling so angry because this has happened, so I'm just going to take a break. So you, after you've expressed yourself, you're also telling them, there are ways to cope. So you take a break, maybe you need your time alone or whatever. So kids, when they feel angry, you can give them options, right? What do you want? Do you need a hug? Do you want some time alone? You're also, after the validation part, you're also giving them strategies. So slowly and gradually they learn.
And also giving them control over how to cope with their own emotions. So teaching them, because like you said, you give them different options and they will choose what feels good for them, because kids understand themselves. We don't give them a lot of credit.
Exactly.
We think that just kids, they don't know anything. But they do know. They understand that once something, it's just expressing it. And when we give them those options, we're teaching them how to express what they need.
Exactly.
That's a very interesting way to put it. So there's another hadith I came across. One who loses control of his anger loses his power of reason. So it comes to, when someone is angry, they cannot think.
Exactly.
But then before they reach that level, there is a trigger. What do you think are the triggers to anger?
So that's a very good point, right? Because what happens, let's say if we divide the brain in black and white, like left and right, which is not really black and white, but there is, obviously one part of our brain is the emotional part, and the other is our, logical and reasoning and decision making and, things to do with that, right? Thinking brain, and that is feeling brain. So when the feelings are at its peak, like if you're angry, and you say, my intensity is 10 today, right now, right? Automatically, the logical part of your brain will not be working, will be at a back seat. So that is why we always tell couples or even parents that, when you feel you're burning with anger, just leave that space. Just don't say anything, because you're going to say things that you're going to regret later. Why? Because your logical part of the brain is not working.
It's like this madness that takes over you because your logic has shut down now. So you really can't even reason with yourself at this point.
Yeah. So that is why it's very important that we know our triggers, like you said, right? Triggers can be both internal and external. By internal, I mean it could be something in your past. It could be something, other emotions that are related or intertwined with anger. Yeah. So that could be something internal, like, or you feel rejected, you feel powerless, you feel out of control. All these feelings, like, when we say anger is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many other emotions that are beneath anger, right? So your trigger could be anything. It could be a simple thing like, something happens and it reminds you of something else, and you get triggered.
Connecting the dots in the brain.
Yeah.
But the person outside does not understand that you've connected several dots.
You also sometimes don't know if you're not reflecting and you're not working on yourself, right? You might say, I don't know what happened to me. I just got from 2 to 10 all of a sudden. So internal reasons and external reasons as well. So external reasons could be any event, anything happening in your environment. It could be, too much to do, feeling overwhelmed. It could be not having your chai in the morning. It could be anything external, right? So knowing your triggers, right? So if it's an external trigger, just like the chai example. So if you know you need that cup of tea in the morning, right? So do something about it and have it, right? Like, make it a priority. If you know you get angry when there's too much to do, right? Make a list, ask for help, prioritize your stuff, right? And we all get overwhelmed when we have a lot to do, but it's about feeling in control. When you feel that, yes, I am in control, I have the resources, what happens is you won't go at 10 all of a sudden. From 0 to 10, your anger won't shoot, because you're identifying the triggers and you're doing something about it.
So identifying the triggers would be first to see what irks you, and then try and find a way to not get there in the first place.
Exactly, yeah.
So like you mentioned the chai example. A second thing that you mentioned was writing down. If you have a lot to do, then planning it out in advance. There's something else I come across a lot right now. It's quite prominent on social media. Journaling.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about journaling. Do you think it's important in anger? Does it help in any way?
So what journaling does is, you must have seen, like you said, in social media, in YouTube videos, there are a lot of examples of journaling, and there are a lot of kinds of what is your purpose, right? So if your purpose is, you want to manage your anger, so we often tell our clients to journal let's say if there is a client, or even if one of us, right, they are feeling angry, right? So journaling, what will happen is they will give, you'll be able to reflect, okay, when did it happen? What was going around me? What was I feeling? What else was I feeling, right? Depending on the prompts, yes, it will be very helpful, because what will happen is after 2 weeks, you've got a record. You've got this, like the ECG, and, you've got ups and downs, right? So you have you started from today, let's say, and after 2 weeks, you see a pattern.
Yeah.
And when you see the pattern, you realize, oh, this is probably what is causing the anger. This is what triggers me. Because before that, we don't really think that deep, right? Like, we just think, oh, anger comes from nowhere. Oh, yes, maybe it's just the chai. Maybe it's not the chai. It's something else. It's maybe deeper, right? It's something that, or maybe like, let's say you see that it's from the outside. Like someone says something to me and that's why I feel angry. But that means that, you don't have control. Like, as long as someone will say something to you, you'll feel angry. So in order to get that control, in order for you to cope better, you have to see, okay, what are my internal factors? What is it about me or my thoughts or my beliefs that I can't cope at that point, and I get triggered and I just lose it.
And then go to solve those issues.
Exactly.
Like you said, if someone says something bad, it can come down to our own self-confidence, self-esteem, which if we see ourselves as low, then every time someone says something, we believe in it, and then we feel this is what we are, and then we get angry at ourselves, but instead project it on another person.
Exactly.
And often our kids are the ones who go through it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So now that we've kind of seen the triggers, what is the impact of anger? Like, the hadith says he loses his power of reason. But this is obviously when a person loses the power of reason. Anger, when we talk about it as an emotion, in sort of cultural terms, we are projecting it at others. So what is the impact that anger has on societies?
So you see, when we talk about relationships, let's start from our own, household, right? That's the stone of the society, right? That's the foundation, our own family, right? So if you grew up with a parent who was angry, as a child, many children, adults now, when they think of their childhood, they've had parents who, one of the parent maybe would scream or would criticize or would show their anger in a way that they would be scared, or they would not be able to have that relationship with that parent.
It's like walking on eggshells, right?
Yeah,
Around
exactly.
the house.
Walking on eggshells is what? Is anxiety. So what are we doing with, with our own authoritative kind of nature? Like, let's say parents, especially, our parents or one or two generations before us, right? Like, now things are still improving. Parents are more accommodative, and they ask kids what they want, or children are okay to express whatever they want to in front of parents. But because many of us grew up in this household where parents had this authority, power, and the way they expressed it was through anger, right? So what is it doing? It's actually transferring anxiety to your own children.
Okay. Yes.
Right. And if it's a relationship between a husband and a wife, let's say if the husband is angry, this is just an example. Yeah, it could be the other way around. So do you think that the wife will be able to be herself in front of that husband? Like you said, walking on eggshells, right? She will not be able to connect. She'll also develop a fear, right? Oh, shall I do this? Shall I ask him this? What if he finds out this? She might also start hiding stuff. So you see, the trust breaks.
So anger leads to trust issues, leads to anxiety.
Exactly.
And
like, let's say if it's your children, right? When you get angry, they don't understand. A child, the primary needs that a child has is love and security and safety, right? We all know, right?
Yeah.
And it has to come from parents. But if the child does not get it at home, where is this child going to go? Outside.
And they're going to fall into the traps
Yeah.
of other people who are waiting as predators.
Exactly. Because you see, we all have this need to be loved.
Yes.
We all have this need to be accepted.
And validated.
Exactly. So if the child is not getting it at home, when the child comes in this world, the parents are like gods, right?
Yes.
But it's not going to be this way throughout. So once they start finding, oh no, actually my parents also have issues.
Yeah.
Right? But because the trust is not there, what will happen is they'll go to their friends. They might, because they want approval, they want to fit in. They might, do whatever is, even if their logical brain says no, they're going to do it because they have this need to be loved. They want to be accepted.
Has to be fulfilled
Exactly.
one way or the other.
Yeah, exactly. So anger leads to a lot of relationship issues.
Yeah.
It's trust. It's like you said, it creates anxiety. It creates this distance, like, between husbands and wives. Like, if one of the spouses always feeling angry, the other spouse might start cheating, God forbid. Like there are so many clients who come to us, and when you listen to their stories, it's like, it's, the way we see it in movies. No, this is real life. Right? Till how long will that spouse just, ignore or just repress? That spouse might develop depression.
Yes.
The one who is being, controlled, and anger leads to abuse, right?
Yes.
So sometimes it could be physical abuse, it could be emotional abuse, and the other person might not be able to cope and develop other mental issues. And it carries on. The children who are looking at their parents, they are obviously learning from us. We are role models for them, so they learn to express the emotions the way their parents are expressing, right? So usually what happens is, if it's a son, the son might copy the dad, right? It's like same gender parents are usually, because that is their role model figure. So the sons might start acting out, the son might, or the daughter might start showing the anger. And then what do? We say, oh, you're not supposed to get angry, but you are getting angry.
Yeah, I'm your parent, be kind to me.
Yeah, so how is that going to work?
Yeah, because the kids will only mimic what we do, basically.
Exactly.
And if that's all they know growing up, you can't expect them to know anything different.
Yeah. Or they'll be completely secluded and will feel that it's their fault, because that's how children think. When parents fight, they think it's their fault.
Yes.
Or they're forced to take sides. They might take the side of the victim. They might, they might feel they have to protect. And that's not what a child is supposed to do. A child is just supposed to live their playfully.
Childhood.
Exactly. They're not supposed to worry about parents. And children do worry when parents fight. They really think that something's going to happen. Mom and dad are going to leave each other, and their brain goes to an extent that we don't even know, and it impacts their mental health, definitely.
And it also impacts their sense of security.
Exactly.
I kind of have not a different point, but I often see that sometimes, like you say, kids, when they come into this world, the parents are the God. Yeah. They look up to them. Everything, the nurturing, everything is in the hands of the parents. Up to at least the age of 6, it's just like this. After that, slowly the concept of Allah as this ilah comes into the mind. But when they see that their primary giver cannot be trusted, do you think to an extent it impacts their trust in Allah?
It's the way the parents will talk about Allah to them, right? They are the mothers, like we say, the mothers, what do you say? The lap is the first university, is the first darska, right?
Yeah.
Where we learn.
The first school for the child.
This first school. So if it depends how the mother is communicating to the child, but also how her relationship with Allah, right?
But then talk is one thing. I mean, if a child cannot trust their parent, does it ever impact the trust in Allah? I'm going right to the bottom of it, putting in a spot. Sorry.
You see, because I'm just thinking of the age of the child, because
5.
the concept of Allah, because at the age of 5, children learn through concrete things. Like the concept of Allah, in my eyes, might not have developed, right?
Okay.
They might imagine Allah as somewhere in the sky or something, but the actual concept, because they cannot see Allah, they cannot feel Allah, it's not materialistic. So they might be confused, but obviously it starts developing, right? But the actual concept of Allah being merciful or trustworthy, that will come, I think, at a later age. At a younger age, they probably think of Allah as someone who gives them food, and which means, like food, proper food, because children think in black and white. They don't think abstractly. So slowly and gradually, yes. On the other hand, if they are in an environment where, where they see the parents are trusting another figure, which is Allah, they might actually in their own hearts develop trust towards Allah and not their parents, maybe.
That's a very interesting way to put it. Okay, that was very interesting. Having had I found it quite fruitful. Because anger is emotion, like you said, we have all grown up with. And unfortunately, we grew up in societies where mental health was never prioritized and anger was seen as an authoritative power. But having identified the triggers and the impacts of it, so if, with your permission, if we conclude this session with a hadith from Imam Baqir alayhi salam, whoever controls his anger, which he could allow to take its course. Now, here, take its course means to, show that aggression. Yep. Allah on the Day of Judgment will fill his heart with security and belief. So with what you've basically said, whoever controls his anger, obviously taking what you've just said, is one who learns to calm themselves down, have this assertive behavior over their own anger rather than allowing it to go volatile and impact everyone. If someone is able to do that rather than impacting others and swallowing that pride that they have within themselves when they have the power to create havoc, Allah will fulfill his heart with security and belief on the Day of Judgment. And Sister Sabira Kanji, I'm so grateful to you for taking the time to come from Tehran for this podcast. And it was very fruitful, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. And I also learned a lot from the hadith and the Islamic perspective that you gave me. Jazakallah.